All right. Oh, we're live.
Awesome.
All right, we'll give it just a couple minutes as folks come on in. Welcome everybody to the Colorado Grain Chain Homeschool. We'll give it a couple minutes as folks file in. All right, I think we'll get started here in just a second. Okay, well, let's get some housekeeping under the way. Welcome everybody to the Colorado Grain Chain Homeschool session. We've got some really exciting speakers for you today. I am Harrison Topp. I am the Director of Membership at Rocky Mountain Farmers Union and your new test pilot for the Colorado Homeschool. Dan left in a hurry, saying all sorts of mean and lewd things about you guys. So I'm here to take his place. That's not true. Dan is elevated to a new position and has succeeded the position to this position to Amber and I. We're really excited to be here with you. Just a little bit of housekeeping before you get starting. There will be a chat function that you can talk with one another, and that you can see posts to different links and things like that. There is also a Q&A function. We ask that if you're going to ask questions of the panelists and the presenter, please use that Q&A function. It's going to be a lot easier for us to manage that. You can find that Q&A function down in the lower bar beneath your video screen. It says Q&A. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This video, along with all the other homeschool videos, are available at the Grain Chain YouTube. And also, I wanted to plug a couple of upcoming things. The Grain School Forum is next weekend, February 6th from 10 to 2. This is a half-day forum that's going to involve lots and lots of people from across the Colorado grain supply chain, and it's going to be a really great event. It's an extension of the grain forums that have been happening over the past couple of years, typically in conjunction with UCCS. This will be hosted by University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, Farmers Union, and the Colorado Grain Chain. Also, next grain homeschool will be February 10th. That'll be hosted with Mad Agriculture. Lastly, through Farmers Union, we're going to be hosting a series of workshops and legislative meetings as part of our leadership summit. That'll be the week following the grain forum. So the 8th through the 13th. It'll have a number of workshops, including setting the agenda on climate, carbon, and soil, understanding stream flow projections in the Colorado River Basin, protecting your water resources, retirement and succession planning, bringing meat processor closer to home, as well as a lot of legislative meetings with Colorado legislators, New Mexico legislators, and folks from Wyoming. A highlight of that will be a conversation with the chairs of the House and Senate Ag committees. But now the reason you're all here is that we have Tyler and April Wilbanks from Rocky Draw Farms. Rocky Draw Farms is located just outside of Dolores, Colorado, near Four Corners. They offer a number of different services. They grow spelt, corn, lamb, potatoes, and I won't. I'll tease you with how they do it. They're unconventional in many ways. But they also do agricultural consulting and run a logging and custom lumber business. Later in the session, we're also going to hear from David from Raleigh Street Baking, one of the leaders in the Colorado Grain Chain, and a friendly face to the homeschool. Without further ado, Tyler, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Morning. How are you guys? So I'm Tyler Wilbanks. We have a small farm. It's just pretty basic. I mean, we just raise and we got into spelt and started producing that type of stuff. And I'm in Colorado. I'm a 5th generation farmer. So we just kind of I just fell into the groove on it, and my wife has kind of supported me all the way through it. And I think there's some days she rolls her eyes and she has a hard time with my wild harebrained crazy schemes, but she's supported me all the way through it. So anyways, and that's kind of about all for my introduction, I guess. We're just a small farm. So, but anyways,
can we meet your wife quickly? Is she sitting there with you?
Actually, we just finished delivering our last load of spelt here in Colorado Springs. And we brought our dogs with us because we can't leave them at home, of course. And so she just took them out to get them some fresh air and some exercise. So as soon as she comes back in, I'll let you meet the better half of our operation, especially the technical part here, because she kind of left me with the Zoom thing, and I'm not all that great with it. I usually send smoke signals or something like that. But anyways, so I don't know if you want me to go ahead and kind of get started into everything, or all right. So I about when I was about 15, 16 years old, I bought my first farm. And it was 40 acres, and I started raising potatoes to pay it off, and it was quite the little project. So anyways, and then after that, we got into more kind of sustainable farming. I was using a tractor. I kind of grew up around tractors, but also my other half of the family used horses. And so I always danced back and forth between farming with horses and using a tractor. And after a few years of using, large equipment and everything, we backed out of that and we started in with just raising horses. And we started actually, I was raising wheat and oats at the time. And I have Crohn's disease. And so when my Crohn's would flare up and stuff, I couldn't eat, wheat. And wheat really kind of irritates it. And so my wife started baking with spelt. And I was sitting there thinking, this is a wheat. Why aren't we growing this instead of me raising something that I can hardly eat, I might as well raise something that I can eat and consume and all that. And so we started growing it. And we kind of bumped into it in a weird way. My wife and I went on a honeymoon up to Ohio, and I'd been looking for seed and everything. And literally when we came home, I had my entire future in that pickup. I bought some new horse-drawn equipment from some of the Amish people up there. And then I bought a bag of spelt from an Amish friend of ours and my wife. So I had my entire future in that truck coming home. I was pretty excited. And we got into producing spelt that first year. It was a wreck. I mean, we grew it, and here I had this really nice crop, and I couldn't figure out how to de-hull it. I couldn't figure out how to get it, cleaned or anything, because it was a new, kind of a new thing for me to figure out. So, but anyways, and then from there we just kept growing, and it just, we were so excited. Our first customers were Bluegrass Bakery, and they called and they asked, I think, for about 800 pounds. And oh my gosh, I thought I died and went to heaven. I was able to make my first really large spelt sell. And it just is, since then, it's just grown and grown. And now it seems like once a month we're making a delivery of anywhere from 2,400 to, up to 4,000 pounds. So it's we've been very fortunate with having our farm grow that much in that avenue. And we went from raising, just working workhorses, and we went from driving Percherons and Suffolks and Belgians and Halflinger Belgian crosses, and then I had a team of Shires, and we finally settled on Clydesdales, and we've been really fortunate. They're a good breed. They hold up good to our work that we ask them to do, and so they've really treated us good, and then the resale value is really good on them. So we breed and raise our own tractors. So it kind of, it works really good, because as our older horses start getting wore down and tired, then we go ahead and we actually raise new foals. We picked us up a brand new stud out of Canada, and so we're breeding and raising all them, and it works good, because we'll break the colts out, get them going in the field, and then after they're driving really good on the farm and they're used to running a hay baler, a mower, plowing, disking, planting grain, harvesting grain, run, all that noise and all that stuff behind them, they're pretty much broke out to do anything someone wants to do with them, on a street, or if they want to do carriage business or weddings, or go back to the farm with them. So, but anyways, that's kind of where we're at. So, are you guys still there?
All right. Tyler, we have one question so far in the Q&A. Someone asked if is any of the spelt that you just delivered to Colorado Springs for sale?
Actually, we made our last delivery, but we thought about throwing more in, and we didn't. But we do make a trip up here pretty regular. So if anybody's interested, we can do like 60 pounds is what we are, kind of our minimum weight is. If there's someone that wants something really kind of special or unique, where they just want 5 or 10 pounds, if we can get enough of those folks kind of interested, it's definitely worth us to throw in the load, and we try to make it about a once a month trip up here. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. But also, I guess, on that whole, on the spelt, we've kind of found that it's a pretty good all around grain. I mean, it does have its catches in its armor. It does have some problems with it, as far as it makes, pretty good bread. I think, in my opinion, it makes excellent bread. I think it makes good pancakes and waffles and all that type of stuff. there are, like, you got to really know how to bake and make pastas and things. I think that's a pretty good challenge. We did deliver some this go around to a really nice family that make pasta. So we're really excited to see how they do with it and everything. And I know we've made pasta in the past with it, but it's a challenging grain. I think it's a fun grain to grow though. If we, as far as on the agricultural end, I think we had CSU do some studies on it, and they're having a hard time actually keeping mold and stuff like that out of it while they're growing it. And we haven't had a lot of that issue. We've been really fortunate. I've been growing it for almost 7 years now. And so CSU and them have been coming to me asking for a little help in what varieties. I kind of take pride that we've crossbred and created a really nice variety that's tolerant. The hole on it is fairly tight. It's not like trying to what ours is anyways. It's not like trying to crack a walnut or nothing, but it's still a really tight hole. So it really kind of provides us a lot of pest resistance. So we keep the weevils don't seem to get in it as bad. And it's a good grain as far as that. The deholing process has been probably the biggest challenge with the spelt production. I think anybody that raises it really struggles with that. There's different solutions. The humidity is crucial in it. So if you're deholing, I feel like the humidity level is absolutely the secret to getting it to dehole right and peel out of the hole without actually cracking it. So, but
Tyler, we have a couple more spelt specific questions. Vic asks, is all spelt ground to the same fineness? And maybe David, if you're in the background too and you have an opinion about that, you guys can tag team it.
I'll let David kind of take over on this, and he's he knows more about that than I do for sure.
Right. I think it really depends on what your desire is, one thing I know, Tyler, you told me you make your own cream of spelt. Like, do you grind that in a mill yourself? Or do you leave it pretty coarse for that? Or what do you, so for me with baking, I feel like I try to get most of the flour as fine as possible oftentimes. And I feel spelt actually has kind of maybe a thinner bran layer than a lot of like the hard red winter wheats. So I find that you can actually mill spelt quite finely, and you can get a really nice fine flour out of spelt compared to conventional wheat, I feel. And maybe free threshing wheats as a whole, I feel like tend to be a little coarser than like the hulled wheats like spelt or einkorn.
I have to kind of agree with you on that for sure. I've kind of noticed that the grains with a hole on it, they just seem to mill a little smoother. But as far as the cream of wheat or cream of spelt, I just open up the grinder. So there's what we call cracks when I'm cleaning, and the cracks we used to give as pig, we call it pig food. But if you clean it off really, really good, and it's really kind of a nice, I would almost put it like a malt mill type, and it makes a good hot cereal. But also when you're milling it, or you just open up your mill just a little bit and grind it a little more coarse and then sift it, and the siftings is what I've always made the hot cereal out of, and I really like it. I'm not a professional as far as on a milling end. I just grow the stuff, and I can dehole it and clean it and all that. I'm not a very good miller. I've never developed the eye for it like some of you guys have. So,
well, you're really good at growing it. That's the most important thing,
Well, I appreciate it. We really have a lot of fun making it, and growing it. It's a little bit of a trick. So, for anybody that's interested in producing it, the trick is you've got to plant it the 1st of September. If you wait like normal winter wheat and like plant the last of September, it'll usually die on you. So you need to plant it the 1st of September, and it really likes to go about 1.5 to 2 inches in the ground. It's not like normal hard red winter wheat where you can go 1 inch in the ground. I think it has something to do with the hole on it. You got to get it down in the moisture where it'll actually stay in the moisture to soften that hole up enough for that kernel to germinate. And instead of planting like dry land, if you're raising dry land winter wheat, you only raise about 40 or 45 pounds, is all you can put to the acre on that dry land winter wheat when you're drilling it, up to 60. But with spelt, you want to make sure that you're planting 80 to 100 pounds to the acre, and you kind of need an agitator in the grain bin because it'll bridge. And then all of a sudden you'll have like these long rabbit trails, is what we call them, through the field. And it's kind of like, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, no one can see it, it's not a big deal. But every farmer, if they can drive down the road and look down at they kind of tease you about the rabbit trails. But spelt's really bad about bridging. So
because you plant that with the hull on, right?
You have to. Yeah. If you plant it deholed, the friction process in deholing it fractures it enough where you probably will only get like a 30% germination. If you plant it with the hull on, it kind of adds like it's like basically the whites in an egg, so the yolk is actually the baby chicken and the white is what the baby chicken feeds on. And that's kind of the best way I can describe what the hull does. It kind of adds the nutrients and stuff to help give that spelt just a little of a jump start. And I think it's a tougher, hardier grain, but it is a little sensitive. You can't plant it out of the hole. It just won't germinate. So. And
then you pull your seeder with your seed drill with your horses, right? Can you talk a little about how like the animals are, I know you've talked to me about how the animals are a lot more delicate on the land, and you actually have to work the land a lot less because of the animals and how you use them.
You do. So your compaction rate and your footprint, obviously is a lot less. But your attention to detail is a lot greater with the horses. I'm right back there. I'll drive 3 to 4 head of horses on my grain drill. I used to have just a 2-horse grain drill. It was only 6 foot wide, and like planting 10 acres a day is all you could get out of that. It was really a slow process. And I mean, it'd take you a week to get 40 acres in the ground. So if you my new grain drill is 14 foot wide. And so I run 4 head of horses on it, and 3 will pull it if they're a little salty, like in the springtime, if you're doing like spring planting or something, or spring wheat, they're kind of frisky. And so 3 head will sure pull it. But by fall, when it comes time to plant spelt, they've plowed, they've disked, they've harvested, they've been working hard and they're muscled up, but they're also a little tired. So 4 head. And then, the nice thing is you're right down there with the product. So, I can monitor how much we're putting in the ground. I can adjust it on the fly. Because I'm standing right back there on the grain box, and just making sure everything's working right. And then as far as the footprint, my compaction rate is like probably 1 to 2% compared to, like a tractor. A friend of mine in Germany was doing a study, and he said that if you drive a tractor through a field, it takes up to 30 years for that to actually completely be gone. I mean, so your compaction rate and your effect on just the soil, really kind of gets a little crazy.
And not to mention you're producing your fuel on your land, right? The horses
exactly
eat,
yeah.
Right.
So we're making our own hay. We make our own grain, obviously, for the animals. And it's kind of nice because for me to make all the hay for my horses, it actually, it cost me about 37-40 bucks in bell and twine to make the hay, to go across. And I can usually in 2 days I can have 40 acres of ground laid down. And so it and then it takes me about 2 days to rake it all, and then a day to bale it. So I mean, we move right along. And that's kind of why we went to the Clydesdales too. They walk so much faster that, with the Belgians, they were a little slower. So, they had more horsepower. It was like putting your truck in 4 low. They had a lot more horsepower and stuff and torque. But they just were a little slow. And so we actually wanted to, something that got done, or, got the job done a little faster. And they don't quite have as much horsepower, but they just stride out a little faster. So, and the Clydesdales are a little mellower than the Belgians, in my opinion. So to make up for it, like, if I need 3 Belgians to plow, I can add 4 Clydesdales, and to make up for that one horse that, the loss of horsepower, but then I gain in speed. I mean, they're just such a fast walking animal. So yeah. But anyways, yeah. And then as far as, the harvest and everything, spelt's really tricky. So like the way we produce it or whatever, you need the stalk green at the bottom, you need the tops dry, and then, the berry, when you bite down on it, it needs to crunch in between your teeth, but when you pull your teeth apart, it should stick a little, and that's about the right point for it to actually be harvested. And then you just you let it dry, and then the threshing process, it's pretty barbaric. I mean, spelt just doesn't actually thresh clean. You can only get maybe 5% of it out of the hole when you thresh it, so the rest of it you gotta actually de-hole it. And that's a really labor intense part of the production of it. So, but anyways.
Right.
Tyler,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Harrison. Go ahead.
I think this is a nice time to enter to bring in some questions about the dehulling and cleaning process. So for a couple of questions, I'm going to try to mash some of y'all's questions up together, but talk a little bit about what your cleaning equipment looks like, or what type of cleaning and dehulling equipment you use, and sort of how you've built up that machine inventory over the past as you've developed the business.
Sure. So we started off with actually a hammer mill, and it basically turned it into like a spelt berry whole, like, paste nastiness. And it was just disgusting. And so we actually messed with it, and I tried everything you can imagine, and we bought a Forsberg dehuller. And they're ideal for peeling and cleaning like oat growth, or cleaning oats and barley and stuff like that. But spelt, it wasn't an efficient type situation. And so then we took expanded metal and we welded that on the drum, and we changed the rubber inside the drum, and that seemed to crack 90% of it, but it wasn't grinding it into powder. And that was like our breakthrough. We thought, oh man, this is great, and we're gaining. And then I was like, but I think we can make it better. So I changed the screen, and then we went back to grind it into like a nasty paste. So then I took the screen back off, and I thought, well, I'll change the rubber inside the drum, and then on the cone that's inside the drum, I would maybe add like rhino lining. And so I tried the rhino lining deal, and it was doing okay, but it wasn't like really efficient. I mean, it'd take me, like a whole day to clean 400 pounds. So we were like, this just isn't cutting it. And so after that, I tried like putting a rubber, like a high friction rubber inside or on the cone. and the centrifugal force made the rubber come off, and it, like, the deholer ate that piece of rubber and spit it out and flung it all over the place. And so that didn't work. And so we've kind of ended up, I changed the rubber inside the drum to a different thickness and like a different friction wear. And then we ended up actually taking 5/32 welding rod, and it has to be 80,000 pounds per square inch type welding rod to handle that much friction and impact. And I took that 5/32 and I cleaned it off and got it really clean. And then I actually welded it to the cone inside the drum. And I had to mess with it a bunch to get the spiral and the amount of welding rods welded onto that cone to actually get it to de-hole it without cracking it, or de-hole it with, like, where it's de-holing 90% at a time. And so we're kind of, then we found that with the humidity, I can drop anywhere from 89%, de-holed the first time, to all the way up to where we're de-holing almost 100% the first pass. So the humidity in the grain is really crucial. So if you got a good rainy day, it's not going to de-hole. It just makes a nasty mess. And then if it's about 10 degrees outside and the grain's cold, it'll crack it. So you kind of need, anywhere from about 40-degree days all the way up, to 100-degree days fine. But the humidity in those days is crucial to make it actually clean and peel out of the hole really nice. And then after that, so it goes through that process, and then it goes through a Crippen three-screen cleaner. And so it actually just, the top screen's just kind of a scarf. So it just cleans off, and, like, all the main junk, like the chaff or whatever the deholer missed. And then the other two screens clean it pretty, on down. And then, so by that point, we're probably, we're about where there's maybe 10% chaff or waste in there that we don't want. And then it goes through a clip or two screen, and it'll run through that clip or two screen up to 5 times before it's actually clean enough that I feel like it's suitable for people to eat, or, to go out into public eye. Cause I just, when you first thrash, in that hole, or in that spelt, when you first bring it in out of the combine or the thrashing machine, there's going to be grasshopper wings, and there's going to be, all kinds of odds and ends things in there, weed seeds and stuff like that we really want to make sure that, is just completely out of there on the second time at least. And then, like I said, by the 4th or 5th time that grain gets cleaned, it's really looking nice. I mean, we've got all the berries that are split, or, there might be some that are shriveled from, too much moisture or something like that are, sorted off. And so that's kind of a really important part. This spelt's a lot more labor intense than, like, just the normal open wheat. So.
Tyler, we've got a couple other questions in here. Laura Poss, I hope I'm saying your last name right, has asked a couple questions sort of about about the practices of planting and using spelt. Her first question is, can you plant this? Can you do a February planting of spelt? And her second question was, do you hay the spelt?
So yeah, there's a variety called Champ, and Champ or Champion it's a good hay variety. It's got a nice wide leaf on it and stuff, and you can plant it in the spring. It will, it's not going to go obviously through the vernalization process, so it'll never produce a berry. I have planted spelt in the spring, and I've got it to come up really nice, and I've hayed it, and it makes a really good hay. Don't plant the spelt in the spring and actually have in mind that it's actually going to produce a berry for you, because it will not go through the vernalization process, and it's not going to do what it needs to do. It'll go ahead and grow. And you'll notice, like, it doesn't tiller out as nice and stuff, but and in February, it's a little too cold. What'll happen is you'll get it in the ground. And if your soil temperature is really cold, it'll freeze. It's gonna, it'll maybe sprout like it wants to do, and then the ground's just gonna kill it, because it'll what they call winter kill. So it needs to be 2 inches above ground before you get your ground to freeze. Because if you got 2 inches of spelt above ground, it'll make it through the winter. But if it's not that high, it'll go ahead and die. So if it was me, and I'm not saying, my area is probably a little different than everybody else's, and this may not be the right way, but this is how I've gotten it to work, is if you plant it the 1st of May, the ground is no longer frozen, it'll go ahead and grow, and it'll produce and everything for you. But it's just not going to make any phenomenal spelt berries or anything like that. So, and it'll need a little more nitrogen also. So you need to make sure you add a little more nitrogen to it that time of year. And also you probably, it's going to need a little bit of water, just a little more than what spelt averagely needs is kind of what I've noticed. So, yeah.
Another technical question comes from Vic Breeden, and they ask, is the drill that you're using a modified tractor pull unit, or is it a horse-drawn, was it built for horse-drawn?
Well, the first one was a horse-drawn, the little 6-foot grain drill I had. And then this one it's a John Deere Van Brunt, and it was made for horses. The manual has got it set up either for horses or tractor. And so it is a drawbar style drill. So, it's a manual. It's actually, you got 2 different gangs that you lift up and set down with levers. And the levers are, of course, in the back instead of in the front. So, you got to get off your tractor and walk around to the back and lower them. It's a double disc opener. This new one is. And I personally like the double disc opener. I had a single disc, and I've had also a hoe grain drill, and the hoe drills are really good. But if you hit a rock or something, they'll break off. So the double disc openers, I think, with a good cover chain, is the secret. So, yeah, and mine's pretty basic. I mean, it's still, it's an either or. It's still steel-wheeled. I personally prefer steel-wheeled equipment. I don't have to go out and air up tires in the spring, and I don't have to, worry about flat tires in the field or anything like that. I just hook up and go. But some of that other stuff, I mean, John Deere Van Brunt also has some rubber tired wheels, grain drills and stuff, and they're all fine. The trick is on those Van Brunts or anything like that is to open up the feed gate where you adjust your seed pounds. There's also a feed gate on the bottom, and you got to open those up all the way for peas. So there'll be one for grain and like wheat, barley, and oats. And then and that one you don't want because the spelt will never go through it. So you open it and bring that feed gate all the way down to peas, and then it'll go ahead and operate like it's supposed to. So.
Awesome. And then I think we've got one other question in here left unanswered, and then maybe David, we can talk a little bit about how to transform the spelt. Judith Rice Jones asks, have you ever flaked the spelt as if you were making oatmeal, or made some sort of comparable breakfast or porridge grain?
So no, I've never flaked it. That's pretty a complicated process. Even oats, to roll that, you got to have a steam process, and so to steam it and roll it and actually do it for oats, if you don't do it right, it actually can be toxic. But with spelt, I've never had the opportunity to steam them and roll them or flake them. I know I have some friends, some Amish friends up in Ohio that do it, and they also do puffed spelt for cold cereal. and they really have good results. I mean, it is a really nice grain that way. I just don't have the machinery to actually steam it and also puff it and do all that really cool stuff. But if you crack it, there's a certain way to crack it. It can't be just split in half or anything like that. It's actually got to be cracked up into quarters. Each berry does, for it to make a really nice, like, we'll say kind of like a Bob's Red Mill type hot cereal. Those are really nice. You can soak it overnight and then boil it in the morning, or you can just, you can use an Instapot or something and boil it. Another thing that Spelt I like is they make good Trigos. So you can boil it and get it soft, and then you can drain the water off and then fry it in a skillet with, like, garlic or whatever for like salad dressing, to put on salads or whatever. So that's another option. But yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to do it. If someone does, in this area, I'd really like to come and watch. I haven't had a chance to go to Ohio and watch some of my friends do it over there. So.
Cool. Well, and actually, there is another question that I missed. Thanks, Michelle, for putting it back in there. And this actually leads well into talking about baking and using Spelt. What is the protein percentage of your Spelt?
So my Spelt's going to be higher protein than other places because we're higher elevation. So the grain, naturally, the more that you stress it and stuff, the higher the proteins go up. So, we're farming in at roughly 7,100 feet is our elevation. It seems to bring the protein up. It'll vary from year to year, but our protein will average between 18 to 21% protein. So it kind of bounces around in there. Just depends on the year. If we have a lot of water and a lot of rain, it'll be closer to 18. If it's a dry year and it's been stressed, our yields are going to be lower, but it'll be up toward maybe 20. So.
Awesome. Tyler, thank you so much. And I'll let you and David work us through some kitchen stuff.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that was great, Tyler. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I met Tyler and why I started to use his Spelt. Just because I feel like, so much that we, what I like to do is, have these relationships with these farmers is just so neat. Tyler, you're just such a amazing guy, and I really appreciate all the, the innovation you've done in your little part of the world down there. And I'm so happy to be able to, use your Spelt. And that's, honestly, probably why I use Spelt, is because I met you, just because you're so excited about it. And I think that just really comes through. And Spelt's an interesting grain to work with, right? I feel like it has a lot of, it's not as necessarily good for bread baking as wheat is, because it is a little bit more, we say extensible. So even though it's higher protein, it doesn't have the same gluten forming properties, and it can really spread on you quickly, and it doesn't like quite as much water as hard red winter wheat does. But being able to use it and learn to use it, I just feel like I'm just knowing you is giving me that opportunity, and it's really nice to be able to I thank Grain School for introducing us. We actually go ahead.
I want to kind of chime in on that. You guys are always saying that, but in my opinion, I'm just the guy that's making the bricks and the mortar. You guys are doing, the beautiful structure. I mean, you guys are the ones that's making this stuff look beautiful and great, and you're doing this amazing stuff. I'm just the guy that's like I said, just supplying the bricks and the mortar to make it. So, but I really appreciate having the opportunity to give you guys, give you some material to work with that you can do awesome stuff with. I really thank you guys for it.
Oh man, we're grateful for sure. Yeah, and I just want to say, like, we we met at grain school. I think I saw the first year I saw you speak, and then the next year we got paired up at a host home, and we often carpooled carpooled to grain school in the morning, and we got to spend some good quality time together. And I really just thank Nana Meyer and UCCS for putting such an amazing event together every year and bringing us all together, because that's why the Colorado Grain Chains exists, is because we've been able to meet each other at this wonderful event every year. And I just want to say again that grain school is going online this year, due to all the current circumstances, and we're doing it. It's a little different. There's kind of we're starting with farming this year, and it's going to be really neat. We're going to have a lot of great speakers, and there's going to be free public forums that people can be involved in. And registration ends on February 2nd for that too. So if anybody's interested, you can find that information. I believe it's it'll be in the Zoom information, right? But yeah, it's really neat to meet Tyler and start that relationship. And for a while, like Tyler's parents would often come through Denver, and I'd always be like, is there any time I can get my hands on your spelt? And you're like, oh, they're coming through, in a few weeks. And it was so cool to have him be able to drop off those 100-pound sacks of spelt right to me, and it just felt so really neat to make that connection. So I kind of want to talk a little bit how spelt affects baking. I know I talked a little bit about the extensibility, but I'll talk a little bit about the what I do with spelt in my baking all the time. I actually kind of use it as an addition. So I blend flour. I don't necessarily make 100% spelt loaf, just because like I said, it has its difficulties, and it won't give you quite as much volume as wheat bread does. So most of my breads contain about 20% spelt, actually. So along with a few other wheats that I'm able to get from Colorado. And it's really what it does to that dough in a small percentage is it creates some extensibility, but it also allows hard red winter wheat, which is very strong. It allows it to spread a little bit more. So I often find the spelt, that addition of spelt gives me a little bit more volume than I'd normally get with a dough without it. And I find that the crust tends to be a little bit crispier with that addition of spelt as well. Yes, and spelt also has this really nice nutty flavor that I feel that you don't get with the hard red winter wheat quite as much. So it's really really nice to add a little bit of spelt to your dough and kind of learn how it affects it. So what I was going to do too today, just something quick, because I know not everybody is necessarily a sourdough baker, but I was going to demo a 100% spelt pie crust. So I've got some ingredients that I've got prepped up, and I'm going to go ahead and mix that up for you real quick. I'll be right back. All right, so I'm going to tilt down here so we can see the bowl. So I had my spelt in the refrigerator. One thing with pie crust, it's good to keep everything really nice and cold. So I've got some ice water. I've got my butter. It's already cubed up, and I'm going to kind of eventually cut the butter into the spelt. And I also have some salt that I'm going to add to the spelt flour. This is kind of a nice coarse salt. You don't have to use, you know, I think a nice coarse salt's nice because you get these really intense little salty bites every once in a while. Say if you're, you know, you could use this for making a pie. You could make like some savory little tarts with this. Anything, mostly pie. So this is 2 cups of whole spelt flour, of Tyler's whole spelt flour. And there's a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to mix these up together. And I'll make sure my cubes are nice and separated here. And it's pretty simple. First, I'm going to mix the flour and the butter together. And then I'm going to kind of cut it in with a pastry scraper to try to get the cubes nice and small. You know, with pie crust, you want to keep those nice butter pieces in there, which gives you that really nice flakiness. And this is just this is unsalted butter. It's 2/3 cup unsalted butter. And this is going to be I'm making a sourdough pie crust here. So I'm actually going to be using some sourdough discard with this. I'm trying to get little pieces. Sorry, it's taking a little bit longer. That'll be pretty good. I'm going to scoop it back in the bowl. All right, so I'm gonna be adding some. I got some ice water here. It's probably gonna be like 5 or 6 tablespoons, and then I also got my sourdough starter. I'm gonna put that in there too. So I'm just gonna start with like a tablespoon or 2, and I'm gonna get about a tablespoon of my sourdough discard and put it in there. And then what I'm going to do is try to dissolve that a little bit first, because I don't want it to be, you know, I want it to incorporate well with the tart, with the pie crust. Just like that. All right, and then I'm going to just start combining it. And then if I need a little bit more water, I'm going to go ahead and add it. You just want it to come together. And like I said, it's maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 6 tablespoons, something like that. That looks pretty good. It's starting to get a little tacky. And then, yeah, I'm just going to try to pull it all together on the table here. And it's a little bit dry. You know, spelt is whole grains in general take more water. So you'll find that when you start working with more whole grain, it's just going to get dry really fast. So it's okay to add a little water at that point. That's pretty good. And if you don't have sourdough starter, you could simply just leave it out of this and just have a regular non-sourdough pie crust. And I'm just gonna, that feels pretty good. Maybe just a tiny, tiny bit more water. Good. All right, I'm gonna leave it like that. Now I'm just gonna put it back in the bowl, and you could wrap it in some parchment paper. Maybe put it in 2 pieces and flatten it into a nice disc. And then what I'm gonna do is let this sit in the refrigerator overnight, and that's gonna allow that flour to ferment a little bit. It's not going to get quite as well fermented as say like a sourdough bread per se, but I still think you'll at least get some of the starches and whatnot converted, make it a little bit more digestible. Yeah, so yep, and then you just, like I said, refrigerate it overnight. I don't have any I'm not gonna like roll out a dough or anything like that. That wasn't my plan. I figure a lot of you have experience with making some pie crust, but I just want to show you how to make it with whole spelt. So let me know if you have any questions.
Dan, David, we did have a couple of questions. One is, do you keep a 100% spelt sourdough starter, and does it behave differently than a wheat sourdough?
I do not maintain 100% spelt sourdough. I just kind of use, like I said, I use it as an addition. You could easily do it. I feel like with the sourdough culture, you're really just providing food to that culture. And maybe if you're really strict about keeping to 100% spelt recipe that you do regularly, it would be worth considering to maintain a starter like that. But for me, I just kind of use a blend of all-purpose and whole wheat flour in my sourdough culture. And I also have a rye starter that I maintain, and I also have a starter that has some sugar in it as well.
We also have some backseat baking coming in from Richard Blackburn, who says if you use 1 tablespoon of vodka instead of water, it will bake off and leave the crust more flaky. You want to respond to that?
I will admit that I'm mostly a bread baker, so that is an excellent tip, and I will have to try that next time. I think I've heard that before. I've also heard of people using like soda water too. I'm not sure exactly how that affects the final product, but yeah, that vodka is a great tip. I'll try that.
And then last question we have in the Q&A comes from Judith Rice Jones, and she just asked if you would read the text that's in the frame behind you.
Oh, right. This right here. It says the bread in your hand is the body of the cosmos, is what it says. Cool. And it's Thich Nhat Hanh quote. And actually, that was given to me at the first grain school I attended. There was a man named Michael the Baker who was there, and he actually has the original copy, the handwritten copy of that. And he was visiting in town and had some copies made, and he was really nice enough to give me that year.
Awesome. Well, we are nearing the next hour. Do we want to finish up with any additional questions, or does anyone have anything for Tyler or for David? Or David, do you have any questions for Tyler? Or Tyler, do you have any questions for David or any of my other hosts?
Yeah, hey Tyler, I've actually been curious. One thing I've noticed, you're talking about how you've bred your spelt. I've noticed over the past few years, it does look like maybe the berries themselves have gotten a little larger. I've also noticed that you've been able to get it a lot cleaner. Can you talk about how you were able to accomplish that?
Actually, the deholing process is pretty tricky. That's what's gotten it where the berries are cleaner now, is just by the deholing, because
Okay.
I've improved it so much. And then the berry size, actually, we've had a few good years back home of just the right conditions to produce a larger berry. So it that has a lot to do with if we have a really wet spring and then it stays wet all the way up into the point that it's starting to what they call get into the dough stage of the berry, and then it'll just dry off really quick, and that'll actually draw the berry back down in size and kind of make it a lot smaller. So that if we have like just a good humid summer, or just a lot of moisture to keep that berry actually full until it actually sets up and matures and ripens, it's going to add a little more size to that berry. So yeah, and then also I've changed the variety a little bit, and so we've kind of like just cross pollinated. We've mixed like two different varieties together in the field and then harvested them and over. And so that's kind of gotten us the style that we're wanting, which it seemed like it's got a better milling texture and it's actually got a little better flavor and everything, than some of this other stuff. It just because some of them they don't have as good of a flavor. I mean it, and then the milling quality just quite isn't what we were wanting. So, but yeah,
Neat.
I appreciate you noticing that, because we put a lot of time and energy into actually cleaning that up to make it look like that. I was worried, like, as anybody, because when we first started, they were pretty bad. It was a little rough, and so they've gotten cleaner and cleaner, and that has to do just with our general cleaning process, and then also just it's
Knowing
been,
when to harvest. Yeah.
yeah, so
Neat.
yeah. But anyways, and then also I had a question. So have you noticed, like, do you notice a difference in the milling between like barley and the spelt and like a hard red winter?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, like, I mean, I actually have some, here's some spelt flour. And then, I don't know how well you can see any of that stuff, but then, yeah, this is the wheat flour. I don't know if you can see anything on the camera, but yeah, the spelt always has just the bran flakes are always much finer. It's really hard to see anything, I'm sure. It just looks like flour, I'm sure. But yeah, the spelt's always much finer, and you can even feel in the texture of the spelt flour. It just really has this really nice soft feel to it. But I do like I was saying earlier, I feel like it is so much to do with that. Like all those hulled varieties tend to have like einkorn. I find I can get that really nice and fine and fluffy, and your spelt as well. And I don't sift any of them. They're always just, like I said, as additions. But the spelt does have what will affect the volume if you put too much of it into the final dough. But it sure is lovely stuff. It makes the dough have this really silky feeling that you don't get with the hard red winter wheat.
I sure appreciate just the feedback and everything.
So my pleasure.
Do you guys think there's a significant difference between store-bought spelt versus a milled spelt from Rocky Draw?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the freshness is a huge part of that. Like you never know when something you might find in the store has been, obviously they'll have a date on the bag somewhere to when it's been milled, but I mean, I would imagine so. And there are quite a few varieties of spelt. I don't know if Tyler, you could talk to that a little bit. I've got there's a really great book actually that I also got at grain school called Neglected Cereals, from Ancient Grains to Superfoods. He has a really great chapter on spelt in there, and talks about all the variety and, you know, the origin of spelt, how it made its way to North America.
I have to agree with I have that same book, and that is a phenomenal book for just as a reference and stuff. As far as the varieties, I have talked to a lot of different folks, and some of my Amish friends, they were saying there's up to 1,500 different varieties of spelt. That's what they say as far as that they know of, but I know for sure there's at least 30 comfortable different varieties, and there's new varieties coming up every day where, you know, Ohio has got, you know, so many different varieties. There's the Sun Gold, there's, you know, the Maverick, there's Champ, there's, you know, a lot of newer varieties that we have out there. And then we have, of course, the older varieties, like Nana's Dinkle that she has, and there's some of those as well that, and I kind of steer towards more of the older variety just because, you know, if we're going to farm with horses, we might as well stay pretty traditional. So
right. And is yours, like, I know spelt can grow awfully tall. Do you have any problems with lodging or anything like that?
No, that's kind of the nice thing. So our spelt can get up to about 5 feet tall. And I don't have a lot of problem because it doesn't have a heavy on it. And the stalk is really heavy. It's got a really nice, strong stalk. And where we live, we just, when harvest season comes, like June, last June, 1st of July, we're in a time of year where there's not a lot of wind. So once it starts getting up there where it's that height, we're pretty much out of the wind season. And so we don't have to really worry too much of it folding over, laying down on us. It's a very strong grain, and it was kind of bred that way anyways, because it was made for where we get the berry off of it, and then we could actually use it for thatching for a roof, or we could use it for animal bedding or something like that. So we wanted a really nice, tall, strong stalk for those other purposes. So that it's not like a lot of our modern wheats where you can watch it just lodge and lay down and fold over on us, and then it's miserable to try to get, you know, picked back up and actually harvested. So
nice.
But anyways, and so for everybody that's kind of interested in everything, so my wife is actually the person that does all the emailing and all the computer stuff and all that. She's the guru on that. So for everybody that like emails or gets in and, you know, and visits, that's her. That's not me. I wished I was that smart with, you know, electronic devices. I'm lucky to be able to operate my flip phone. So, you know, and I'm lucky to even pull up a Google search engine. But as far as, just so everybody knows, you know, she's kind of the head person on all the coordinating and the scheduling and all that. So, I just wanted to let everybody know it's just that part of it. The business is not me. So, but.
Well, we're glad that she's able there to help you. Thanks, April, for all you do to support Tyler and making his dreams come true.
But anyways, I just want to thank you guys again for having me and giving me the opportunity to kind of talk about all this. So, and also just another thing, if anybody's interested this summer to come and do a farm tour and tour our farm and see how things are going, every year is different, you know, because our growing season, you know, with the climate change and everything is so dramatic. So, you know, we might be producing some, you know, potatoes, or we might be producing sweet corn or field corn, or, you know, rye or spring wheat, or, you know, it just varies. But I just, you know, if anybody is ever out our way, they're always welcome to come and visit our farm. We always welcome people. So.
Thanks, Tyler.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tyler, David, everybody, thank you so much. I'm gonna wrap us up here and just remind everybody that there is a a number of things coming up for you to engage with, including the Colorado Grain School Forum, which is next Saturday the 6th. And then on the 10th is going to be the next Homeschool with Mad Agriculture. Also that week is the RMFU Leadership Summit, and which will have lots of different workshops and things like that. Check out Colorado Grain Chain's Facebook and their website for more information. Check out the Farmers Union Facebook for other upcoming events. Also, just to plug, Grain Chain is a membership organization. So if you want to join the Grain Chain, the Colorado Grain Chain as a member, that would be great. And as a bonus, if you're a business member of the Colorado Grain Chain, you get the added benefits of also being a Farmers Union member, which comes with lots of out of this world benefits. So anyways, thank you guys so much. I will let the last word come from Tyler or David.
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Tyler, for joining us today. You know, I'm so happy we could bring you here and let everybody hear a little bit about your story and all the amazing work you're doing down in Mancos. Yeah. Tell me about the field corn. I'd love to get some of your field corn too, whenever you have that, if you have some of that available in the summer.
Yeah, it should come off around August. So yeah, we'll probably just do field corn in August. But yeah, if you and if you wanted, you could come and pick it up. That'd even be more awesome. So you could tour our farm.
I want to for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, our farm is just the bricks and mortar for you guys. I mean, you guys are actually the ones making this awesome stuff out there. Yeah, you're making all the yummy things. Watching you make that pie crust, my stomach's sitting there gurgling. So.
Well, just, you know, it's great to be able to tell my customers they love hearing about what you do. And, you know, like I said, I'm really happy to use it and really thankful to Grain School for bringing us together.
For sure. Yeah. And that's for sure. I want to thank Nana, you know, for helping us make all this happen. So.
Well, thank you, everybody. Did Dan have any sort of catchy sign off?
Yeah, he used to sing, actually. It was a country song. No.
Okay.
You're going to have to do your clogging, Harrison.
Yes,
right, yeah.
The clogging demonstration.
Yeah, y'all don't need to get all clogged up right now.
One quick question. Hey, Tyler, can people buy your stuff up in Boulder? Do you sell to Moxie, or where can people buy and support you?
Yeah, so we sell to Moxie. We sell to Dry Storage. We also sell to, of course, Blue Grouse, Raleigh Street, obviously, and yeah, Nightingale Bread in Colorado Springs. So, and I think that's it for right now. Yeah, I think that's actually it for right now. There might be a few other folks. I know we sell privately while we're making our trips as well. You know, as we're up here. So if you email us or send us a message on Facebook or whatever, and if you don't mind waiting a little bit, we can also just meet you somewhere between, you know, Fort Collins all the way down to Pueblo. So, on this side of the mountain.
I'm happy to give anybody on this call some as well if they want to pick some up from me. Let me know if you want a small amount. Yeah.
So it's kind of like you know, it's like a drug. You start off with a small amount, and then pretty soon, you know, these people are buying. You know, it starts off as like a 20-pound test, and then pretty soon everybody's buying 2,000 pounds. That's our whole motive right there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, all y'all, thank you so much. Thanks for taking time on this Saturday. For us, it's a snowy Saturday out here in Hotchkiss, Colorado. I hope y'all are getting the moisture you need. And Tyler, I hope you have a safe drive back. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison.